I've spent my life reading people, watching the way their eyes dart, the hesitation in their step, the tremble in their hands when they lie. And right now, my wife is lying to me. Charleston in the spring smells like salt and old money. The kind of place that wears its history on its sleeve, where the hotels have brass fixtures polished every morning and the doormen stand straighter than soldiers. I lean against my truck, parked half a block from the Hartman, watching the entrance. A boutique hotel, high-end but quiet. The kind of place you take a lover when you don't want anyone to notice. Lillian Harrison walks through the revolving doors at exactly 5:17 p.m. Blonde hair in loose waves, light blue dress, heels too high for a woman just in town for a work conference. She doesn't stop at the front desk. She already has the key. I exhale slowly. I'd suspected it for months. The late nights, the new perfume, the way her phone was always face down. The distance. That was the biggest tell. Lillian was never cold. She could work a room like a politician, making you feel like you were the most important man in the world. Until you weren't. The front desk clerk barely looks at me as I walk in. I nod, tipping my ball cap, just another man passing through. A couple stands by the concierge desk, asking for dinner recommendations. The elevator dings, and I glance up just in time to see him step out. Kevin Keller. The kind of guy who orders whiskey neat but doesn't actually like the taste. Tall, mid-40s, full head of dark hair, sharp suit. A salesman, maybe finance. The kind of man who talks with his hands too much, thinks charisma is the same thing as charm. He checks his watch, grinning like he just won a prize, and heads toward the bar. I follow. The bartender is polishing glasses, the place dim and quiet, a few businessmen murmuring over drinks. I take a stool one down from Kevin. He doesn't look my way, too busy checking his phone. Probably texting Lillian. I lift a finger, catching the bartender's attention. Bourbon. Neat. Kevin glances at me, then does a double take. I don't look like the usual clientele in this place. Boots, jeans, jacket worn at the elbows. His suit is crisp, tailored, the kind of thing that cost more than my first truck. You in town for business? His voice is smooth, rehearsed. I lift my glass. Something like that. He smiles, all ease and confidence, and turns back to his phone. I take a sip, let the bourbon burn. My patience is a well I learned to dig deep. Years of military training, years of working in private security, learning that control wins more fights than fists ever could. Kevin stands, tucks his phone away. Good talking to you, man. I don't answer. Just watch him walk toward the elevators, his stride unhurried, the cocky kind of walk men have when they think no one's watching. I finish my drink and set the glass down carefully. Then I head for the front desk. The young woman behind the counter looks up, polite smile, already prepared to tell me I need a reservation to book a room. I lean in slightly, keeping my voice low. Hey, don't mean to bother, but my wife checked in earlier. Lillian Harrison. I think she might have forgotten to add me to the room. Her smile tightens just a fraction. She glances at the computer. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't give out guest information. Of course. I pull my phone out, open a note. She said we were in 402. Just need a key, if that's all right. She hesitates, eyes flicking to the back office. Young. Maybe early 20s. I could press her, but I don't need to. That's all right. I say easily, sliding the phone back into my pocket. Could you at least ring the room? Let her know I'm here. She nods, picks up the phone, dials. It rings. Once. Twice. Then a soft click. Her polite smile falters. She must not be in the room right now. Must not, I agree. I nod, step back, and leave the lobby. The air outside is humid, thick with the scent of the harbor. I walk back to my truck, lean against the hood, and watch. I don't need to go up. I don't need to see them together. I've already won. It's just a matter of how I play it. I stay by my truck, arms crossed, watching the entrance. The streetlights flicker on, stretching long shadows across the sidewalk. Charleston hums with evening life, couples strolling hand in hand, tourists with shopping bags, businessmen cutting across the street to high-end restaurants. Normal people, living normal lives. I used to have that. Now, I have this. The hotel doors slide open, and Kevin steps out first. He's changed, traded the suit for dark slacks and a crisp white button-down, sleeves rolled just enough to look effortless. He checks his phone, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, then looks back over his shoulder. Lillian follows, her heels clicking against the stone steps. She's laughing, that easy, practiced laugh, the one she used at fundraisers and dinner parties when she wanted to make a man feel special. I know the sound. I know every version of it. She reaches for Kevin's arm, but he moves first, placing a hand at the small of her back. I roll my shoulders, exhaling slowly. Patience. Control. They walk past me without a second glance, caught up in their little world. They don't see the man standing in the shadows, the man they've already written out of the picture. I follow. They stop at a restaurant just down the block, one of those places where the waiters wear vests and the menus don't have prices. I let them get inside first before pushing through the doors a minute later. The host barely looks at me, his attention focused on a couple asking about wine pairings. Works fine for me. I scan the room, spotting them near the back, tucked into a dimly lit corner booth. Lillian is leaning in, laughing at something Kevin just said. Her hand rests lightly on his wrist. I walk straight to the bar, taking the seat with the best view of their table. The bartender nods at me. What can I get you? Bourbon. Neat. He pours without a word. I keep my gaze on them, watching the way Lillian tilts her head, the way Kevin shifts closer, his knee almost brushing hers. She looks happy. Relaxed. I take a slow sip, letting the burn settle. Then I stand up and walk over. Kevin sees me first. His brow furrows slightly, the wheels turning, trying to place where he's seen me before. Then it clicks. I see it in his face, the shift, the realization. Lillian turns next, and her smile freezes. I don't sit. Just rest my hands against the edge of the table, leaning in slightly. Small world. Lillian's fingers tighten around the stem of her wine glass. Jacob. Kevin clears his throat, shifting in his seat. Dewey. Kevin Keller. I let his name settle between us. Works for Hamilton and Pierce. Office in Atlanta. Travels for business. I glance at Lillian. That sound about right? She sets her glass down carefully, voice steady but tight. What are you doing here? I smile, slow and easy. Same as you. Business trip. I look at Kevin again. Hell of a coincidence, don't you think? Kevin shifts again. He's sweating now. Not much, just a slight sheen on his forehead, but I see it. Lillian straightens. Jacob, let's not. I hold up a hand. Relax. Just saying hello. I glance at the table, the half-empty wine bottle, the untouched entrees. You two look cozy. Kevin opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. I let him sit in it for a second, then tap the table twice. Well, don't let me interrupt. Enjoy your evening. Then I walk out. I don't look back. I don't need to. The trap is already set. I drive back to the hotel, take the elevator up to the top floor, and walk down the hall to room 402. I don't knock. I don't even hesitate. I slide the duplicate key card into the slot, and the light flashes green. Inside, it's exactly what I expected. A king-sized bed, neatly turned down. A bottle of champagne sweating on ice, 2 glasses waiting. A suitcase sits open on the stand, Lillian's dress draped over the back of a chair. I walk over, pick it up, run my fingers over the fabric. Silk. Expensive. I drape it back, then pull my phone from my pocket and snap a picture of the room. One more of the bed. Another of the champagne, just for good measure. The kind of evidence that doesn't leave room for doubt. Then I walk into the bathroom. Her makeup bag is open on the counter, brushes and compacts spread neatly, the way she always did at home. There's a second toothbrush next to hers. A man's razor. I let out a low breath, staring at the mirror. My reflection looks the same as it did yesterday, but something in my chest has shifted. Not broken, just settled. I knew what I came here to find. And now, I have it. I leave everything as it is, step back into the hall, and head for the elevator. Back in my truck, I scroll through my contacts and hit a name. The line rings twice before he picks up. Jacob, a gravelly voice says. Been a while. Need a favor, Noah. The old investigator chuckles. Last time you said that, I ended up sitting in a parking lot for 6 hours watching some banker try to cheat at golf. This one's easier. A guy named Kevin Keller. Hamilton and Pierce, Atlanta. Married. I need everything. Noah doesn't ask questions. Never has. Give me a day. I hang up, watching the lights of downtown Charleston flicker across my windshield. One day. That's all it takes to dig a grave for a man like Kevin. The next morning, I check out of my hotel early, drive out past the city limits where the buildings thin out and the roads get quieter. There's a small diner just off the highway, the kind of place that's been around since before chain restaurants took over. I park, step inside, and find a booth near the window. 10 minutes later, Lillian slides into the seat across from me. She looks like hell. No makeup, hair pulled into a loose knot, sunglasses shielding whatever damage last night did to her eyes. She doesn't order coffee. She doesn't even look at me. Why are you here, Jacob? Her voice is steady, but the tightness in her jaw gives her away. I fold my hands on the table. Marriage counseling. That gets her attention. Her head snaps up, and I see it, the flicker of hope, the calculation behind her eyes. Lillian, when's the last time I lied to you? She hesitates. I don't think. She does. And when she doesn't answer, I nod. Exactly. So when I tell you we have a session at noon, you know I'm not making it up. She lets out a slow breath, rubbing her temples. Jacob, I save it. I push a napkin toward her, the address scribbled in ink. Show up. That's all I'm asking. She stares at the napkin, then at me. I can see the wheels turning. She thinks she has an angle, some way to spin this in her favor. She has no idea what's waiting for her. At exactly 11:55, I park across the street from the building. It's an office space, nondescript, just another rental unit with frosted glass doors and a discreet sign that reads Dr. Alan Porter, Marriage and Family Therapy. I could have picked anywhere, but this location mattered. Close enough to the city for convenience, far enough from prying eyes to keep things private. Lillian pulls up 2 minutes later in her SUV. She sits in the driver's seat for a long moment, staring at the entrance, probably debating whether to turn around. I watch her through the rearview mirror, letting her have her moment. Then she exhales, squares her shoulders, and gets out. She walks through the doors first. I follow. The waiting room is quiet, the kind of space designed to make people feel safe. Muted colors, soft chairs, a glass dish full of mints on the receptionist's desk. Lillian glances at the closed office door, then back at me. Where's the doctor? I nod toward the door. Waiting for us. She hesitates, then pushes through. Inside, the room is bright with natural light from the tall windows. 2 chairs sit facing a long couch. A coffee table between them. The air smells like freshwood polish. Lillian steps forward, and then stops cold. Penelope Keller is sitting on the couch. Kevin is standing near the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. His suit is pressed, but there's tension in his shoulders. His gaze flicks to me, sharp, wary. Lillian turns back to me, voice low and controlled. What is this? I close the door behind us. Counseling. Just not the kind you were expecting. Penelope shifts in her seat, leveling her gaze at Lillian. You've been sleeping with my husband. No theatrics, no emotion. Just a fact laid bare. Lillian swallows hard. Her eyes flick to Kevin. You told her. Kevin exhales through his nose, shaking his head. I didn't have to. Jacob had proof. Lillian turns to me, and for the first time in a long time, I see something crack in her expression. It's not guilt. It's not shame. It's fear. The realization that she isn't in control anymore. I walk over, take a seat in one of the chairs, slow and easy. See, the problem with affairs is they're built on a foundation of lies. And once the truth comes out, that foundation crumbles. Kevin here, he's got a wife, a career, a reputation. And now Penelope has every reason to burn all of that to the ground. Kevin's jaw tightens, but he doesn't say a word. Penelope, though, she leans forward, resting her elbows on her knees. I spoke to my attorney this morning. We're done. Divorce papers are being drafted. You'll be hearing from them soon. Kevin shifts, a flicker of frustration behind his eyes. Penelope. No, she says, voice steady. You made your choice. Now you live with it. Lillian shakes her head slightly, still processing. This isn't. She stops herself, straightens her spine. She looks at me again, anger creeping in now, trying to find something solid to hold on to. And what about us, Jacob? You really think this fixes anything? I glance at her, then at Kevin. No, but it sure as hell makes it right. Silence stretches between us. Lillian finally exhales, turning back to Penelope. I never meant. Penelope stands. Save it. She walks past, barely sparing Lillian a glance. She pauses by the door just long enough to look at me. Good luck. Then she's gone. Kevin mutters something under his breath, running a hand through his hair. He looks at Lillian, like maybe he's expecting her to have some grand plan to fix this. But she doesn't. She just stares at the floor. I push back my chair and stand, stretching my shoulders. Well, I think that about covers it. I pull an envelope from my jacket, set it on the table in front of Lillian. Filed this morning. Custody papers. Divorce petition. You can sign it now or later. Makes no difference to me. But we're done. She looks down at the envelope, fingers curling slightly. You always have to win, don't you? I don't answer. I just grab my keys, nod once at Kevin, and walk out. A month passes. Papers are signed. Accounts are divided. Lawyers handle the details. I don't hear from Lillian much, aside from the occasional email about logistics. She doesn't fight for custody. Maybe she knows she wouldn't win, or maybe she just doesn't want the responsibility. Either way, Cody stays with me. He doesn't ask questions, just nods when I tell him the divorce is final. I keep moving forward. The house feels quieter than before, but not empty. There's work to do, and I stay busy. I hire Tom Decker, an old friend and the best damn carpenter I know, to help with some renovations. He shows up at sunrise in his rusted-out Ford, takes one look at me, and shakes his head. You look like hell, Jacob. I smirk, wiping my hands on a rag. Good to see you too, Tom. He leans against the truck, arms crossed. So, what's the plan? Replacing the back deck, fixing the fence, thinking about a new roof before the season changes. He nods. And that's gonna keep you sane? Work always does. He grunts but doesn't push. That's why I called him. Tom's a man who knows when to talk and when to shut up. He gets to work without another word, pulling out his tape measure, taking stock of what needs to be done. The days fall into a rhythm. I wake up before dawn, get in a run, make coffee. Cody leaves for school, quiet but steady. He's got his mother's sharpness but none of her need for attention. Even now, after everything, he keeps his head down, handles it his own way. I respect that. One afternoon, I get a visitor. The knock at the door is slow, deliberate. I wipe sawdust off my hands and pull it open to find Michael, a kid I met a few years back when he was debating enlisting. He's standing on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking like a man with something to say. Didn't think I'd see you again, I say, stepping aside. Come on in. He nods, follows me to the kitchen. I pour him a glass of water and slide it across the table. He stares at it for a second, then exhales. Got discharged. His voice is flat, controlled. Medical. Hit an IED. Leg's fine, but they said I couldn't do the job anymore. I nod slowly. That's a tough break. He lets out a short, bitter laugh. Yeah, something like that. I don't say anything. Just let him sit with it. He drums his fingers against the table, glancing at the tools scattered across the counter. You hiring? I raise an eyebrow. You know anything about carpentry? Not a damn thing. I smirk. You willing to learn? He shrugs. Figure it beats sitting around feeling useless. Then you start tomorrow. He nods, relief flickering in his eyes for just a second before he schools his expression. He finishes the water, sets the glass down, and stands. Appreciate it, Jacob. Be here at 7. Don't be late. He gives me a sharp nod and heads for the door. I watch him go, then glance out the window at the yard, the half-finished fence, the piles of lumber waiting to be used. Plenty of work to be done. And for the first time in a while, I don't mind the idea of having someone around to help get it done. Michael shows up the next morning at 6:55, a gas station coffee in one hand and a determined look on his face. He's got the posture of a man still used to taking orders, but there's something else there too, hesitation, maybe. A man used to having a mission but suddenly left without one. I know the feeling. Tom looks him over, squints, then jerks a thumb toward the pile of lumber stacked near the fence. Hope you like splinters, kid. Michael grins, but it's a sharp thing, more edge than humor. Had worse. He works hard, doesn't complain. He watches everything, picks things up quick, asks the right questions. By midday, he's stripped off his sweatshirt, sweat running down his back as he hauls wood, drives nails, cuts boards under Tom's sharp eye. I watch him for a while before heading inside, letting them settle into their own rhythm. Inside, I check my email. A message from Lillian sits unread in my inbox, subject line blank. I open it. Jacob. I'm moving. New city, new start. I know you don't care, but I thought you should know. Tell Cody I'll call him soon. Lillian. I stare at it for a second, then close the laptop. It doesn't matter where she goes. She made her choices. Now she lives with them. Outside, Tom calls out, Hey, boss, you're missing all the fun. I step back onto the porch. Michael's standing by the fence, shaking his head at a measurement he just botched. Tom smirks, clapping him on the shoulder. Told you. Measure twice, cut once. Michael sighs, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah. I lean against the railing. Only way to learn is to screw it up first. Michael glances over, reading something in my tone. He nods once. Gets back to work. The sun dips lower, stretching long shadows across the yard. We wrap up late, the fence half finished, sawdust clinging to our shirts. Tom heads off first, grumbling about his back, leaving me and Michael standing by the porch. He stretches his shoulders, rolling out the tension. Haven't slept this good in weeks. Work'll do that, I say. He nods, quiet for a second. Then, I spent months trying to figure out what the hell to do next. Feels good to just do something. Yeah, I say. It does. He picks up his bag. See you tomorrow. I watch him walk off, his steps steadier than they were this morning. Inside, Cody's on the couch, flipping through channels. He barely glances up. Dinner. I grab 2 plates from the fridge, leftovers from last night. Set one in front of him, take the other. We eat in silence for a bit before he finally says, Mom texted me. I don't look up. Yeah. Said she's moving. Somewhere up north. He stabs at his food. Didn't say when. I chew swallow. You gonna call her? He shrugs, but there's something stiff in his shoulders. Dunno. I let it sit for a while, then say, you don't owe her anything, but she's still your mother. If you want to talk to her, that's your call. He nods slowly, but I can see it in his face. He's already made his decision. We finish eating, and he disappears to his room. I grab a beer, step onto the porch, and sink into the chair by the railing. The night air is thick with the scent of pine and sawdust, the sound of crickets cutting through the quiet. There's a lot behind me, a lot ahead. But for the first time in a long while, I'm not looking back. A month later, the fence is done, the deck is solid, and the house finally feels like something built to last instead of something waiting to fall apart. It's a cool morning, sky stretched wide and clear, the kind of day that makes a man appreciate the work in his hands. I'm on the porch with my coffee when Tom pulls up, gravel crunching under his tires. He kills the engine, steps out, and stretches with a groan. Well, hell, Jacob. Looks like a damn magazine cover out here. I smirk, taking a slow sip. You're just impressed we finished before your back gave out. Tom snorts, heading up the steps. Give me some credit. My back's been shot since '98. He leans against the post, glancing toward the fence where Michael is checking the final nails. Kid's good. You keeping him on? I watch as Michael steps back, nods to himself, then gives the wood a solid knock, testing the strength. If he wants the work, he's got it. Tom nods, stretching his arms. Good. Keeps him out of trouble. I grunt in agreement. Cody steps outside, backpack slung over his shoulder. He grabs a protein bar off the table, nods at Tom. Morning. Tom tilts his head. Look at this. The kid acknowledges my existence. Cody smirks, peeling the wrapper. Still debating if you're worth it. Tom barks a laugh. You're Jacob's kid, all right? I glance at the truck. You driving or me? Cody waves me off. Got it. He hesitates for a second, something unreadable crossing his face. Then he nods, just a small thing, before heading down the steps. Tom watches him go. He good. He will be. The truck rumbles to life, kicking up dust as Cody pulls onto the road. He doesn't need me to take him anymore, but I don't mind the mornings when he does. Kid's growing into himself. Tom taps the railing. All right. I'm heading out. Got a widow's porch to fix before she decides to put a hex on me. I shake my head. Don't let her talk you into fixing the whole damn house. He grins, pulling open the truck door. Jacob, you know damn well I already lost that fight. He pulls away, and I settle back in my chair, stretching my legs out. Michael drops his tool belt on the porch, cracking his neck. That's that, he says, wiping the sweat from his brow. I nod toward the fence. You happy with it? He eyes the wood, running a hand along the rail. Did it right? I nod. That's all that matters. He exhales, rolling his shoulders. I got a buddy looking for work. Marine. Could use something to keep his hands busy. I take another sip of coffee. Tell him to come by. Michael studies me for a second, then nods. No thanks, no extra words. Doesn't need them. He heads off, and I sit there for a while, letting the quiet settle in. Lillian is gone, moved up north. She hasn't called, and Cody hasn't asked. Kevin's a ghost. Heard through Noah that the divorce cleaned him out, lost his job, lost his house. Last I checked, he was in Florida, selling insurance. Good. Sun climbs higher. The day stretches ahead. I drain the last of my coffee, stand, and head inside. Time to get to work.